Hello everyone, I welcome you all to Manu Law Classes Current Affair Analysis. In this particular lesson, we will discuss July 10th, The Hindu newspaper, Delhi edition. So in this particular video, we will discuss in detail about the Forest Conservation Act and its amendment. We will also discuss about torrential rain. Apart from that, we will discuss about WTO in detail. We will also discuss about OMSS scheme, and then we will discuss about the cluster munition and convention on cluster munition, which we discussed in our last class. So without further delay, let's begin our discussion with the very first topic in news, that is about the Forest Conservation Act. Now, first we will discuss in detail about what is Forest Conservation Act. Then we will discuss about all the amendments which has been proposed. So if we talk about what is Forest Conservation Act, so this was an act of 1980s, okay? And it is an act of parliament which basically ensures conservation of forest and its resources. So its main aim is conservation of forest and its resources, like whatever it is producing, timber, and apart from that a lot of fruits. So all these comes under this particular act. It was basically enacted by the Parliament of India in order to control the ongoing deforestation. The ongoing deforestation in India. To control that or to combat that, this particular act was introduced by the Parliament on October 25, 1980. Okay, so please remember this date, October 25, 1980. This was the date when Forest Conservation Act was passed. The main aim of this Forest Conservation Act, as I told you, is to preserve the forest, but apart from that, it has various objectives. Okay, so what are these objectives? First, to protect or to prevent the forest from further deterioration, or to protect the forest along with its all flora, which means all the plant species, and the fauna, which means all the animal species, and also the diverse ecological component. Along with that, we have to protect the forest as a whole ecosystem will be protected by implementing this particular act. Okay. Second important objective of this particular act is to arrest the loss of forest biodiversity. Basically, it means to arrest or to prevent the deforestation issue. Okay. Third objective of this particular act is to forest land, prevent the forest land which is being converted into agricultural or grazing community, and to prevent this, or basically to prevent the deforestation, this particular act was enacted. Okay, so this is about the basics of what is the Forest Conservation Act. Now we will see in detail. A parliament committee has been set up to examine this particular amendment of the Forest Conservation Act. Now, what are these amendments? First, we will discuss about it. There will be basically a dilution of the Supreme Court 1996 judgment in the Godavaram case that extended protection of the wide contracts of forest even if they were not recorded as forest. Second amendment is, as we know, for the infrastructure project or to protect our boundaries, we need to construct a lot of roads near the border areas. But for constructing these roads, we need clearance for making these roads. But under this particular amendment, it has been written that the geographical sensitive area within the 100 km of the international border or the LOC, no forest clearance is required to construct any highway or hydel power project, and so on. And along with that, the third provision of the amendment is that there should be no central protection for the vast protect or the so-called deemed forest or forest not officially recorded as forest, and permitting activities such as tourism compromising their integrity. So these are the major points of the amendment which has been proposed by the government, and these amendments, for these amendment, a parliamentary committee has been set up. Okay. So please remember all these points and the basics of Forest Conservation Act or the background when this act was passed, the important Supreme Court judgment of 1996 in the Godavaram case. Just remember all these things. Apart from that, what you have to do as a homework, you have to learn more about CAMPA. What is this CAMPA and what is compulsory afforestation? You have to read about this and comment it out in comment box when you will read about it. Okay. Moving further toward our next important news, that is with regard to the torrential rain. As we have already seen, those who are belonging from Delhi, they know that a lot of torrential rain has occurred and it is still continuing. So we will basically, the news is not that important, but what is important from geography static aspect is the torrential rain. So what is torrential rain? It is basically a heavy downpour of rain. Okay, heavy downpour of rain is called the torrential rain, and the National Weather Services defines torrential rain as the rain that accumulates at a rate of 3/4 of an inch per hour or more than per hour. Okay, so that is torrential rain. Just remember this condition as defined by the National Weather Services. Now we will discuss in detail about the causes why these torrential rain are happening. The major reason behind these torrential rain is moisture. Okay, it is what? Moisture. So basically, whenever it moves along the weather front, moisture, it causes torrential rain. And also the convective cloud causes precipitation to occur when enough moisture rises up due to the upward motion. Okay, and the narrow torrential rain band come as a result of cumulonimbus cloud. There are various type of cloud and majorly the rain associated cloud is cumulonimbus cloud. So remember the name of this particular cloud. These things or these condition leads to torrential rain and it is happening in the capital. Torrential rain is happening in the capital Delhi and apart from that in Karnataka and also in some other part of the India. Okay. Moving further toward our next important article, that is with regard to the Article 159 or the Governor article. Okay. So here basically, as we know, there has been a lot of struggle or a lot of conflict between the Tamil Nadu governor and the chief minister's talent. So basically, what is important for us is this particular article or Article 159. Okay. It is basically an article related to the oath of the governor. Okay, it is related to the oath of the governor. Under this particular article, the governor or any person who has been appointed as governor shall take a oath before subscribing to the office of governor, and he takes this particular oath in front of the Chief Justice of High Court. Okay, so remember these things. Chief Justice of High Court in the presence of this particular Chief Justice of High Court, or if in case he is not available, the senior most judge of High Court, in presence of him, the governor takes the oath. Okay, and here he basically takes the oath to protect, preserve and defend. Okay, just remember these points. Remember these three terms: to protect, preserve and defend the Constitution of India. Only two persons in India takes this particular oath. First one is President and second one is Governor. Other than that, all the other position, whether we say Prime Minister or the Chief Minister or any minister, they take oath, they take particular oath with regard to provide allegiance, or they will accept what is there in the constitution. But the right or the, we can say, the duty of the governor or the president is to protect, preserve and defend the Constitution of India. Okay, so remember this particular important point which has been highlighted and the important article, that is Article 159, under which the governor takes oath. Okay, now a very important news which is coming in from Varanasi. As under the Namami Gange program, there has been a large amount of turtles which was put in the Ganga, and through that we have seen that turtles are basically helping in to clean the Ganga. In 2014, the Wildlife Institute of India and the Ministry of Forest, they joined hand with the National Mission for Clean Ganga, which is basically a nodal agency for implementing the Namami Ganga project. And since 2017, the Turtle Breeding and Rehabilitation Center has been set up in UP Varanasi, and a dozen of turtles have been basically put into the Ganga. And what these turtles do, they basically eat the rotten or the half burnt human bodies. As we know, there are a lot of like ghats, especially Samshan ghats near the river, and the body which has been half burnt or half left, they are thrown into the river Ganga. So what these turtles do, they basically eat those human bodies, and also they eat the flowers which are dumped during the puja or something, during any ceremony, religious ceremony, and they eat all these things and they help in cleaning river Ganga. Okay, so what is important for you? First one, what is the implementing agency of the Namami Gange project? You have to tell me in the comment box what is Namami Gange project, what is its aim, and in which year it was launched. Apart from that, you should remember that the Turtle Breeding and Rehabilitation Center is in UP's Varanasi. Now, few more points which is important from the static aspect of environment is this. As we know, whenever we suspend any unburnt human body or something organic waste, we can say, it is being put into the water, the quality of water degrades. And how we check this quality of water? By looking at the biological oxygen demand. So what is important for us is biological oxygen demand. What is this particular term? Biological oxygen demand is the amount of dissolved oxygen, because we know the water, it has the affinity to bind oxygen with it. So basically, biological oxygen demand is the demand of dissolved oxygen that is needed by the aerobic biological organism to break down the organic material present in the given water sample at certain temperature and over a certain specific time. So basically, if I say, जैसे सपोज कीजिए ये आपकी एक रिवर बॉडी है, यहाँ पे कुछ ऑर्गेनिक वेस्ट है मेरे पास. अब जो ऑर्गेनिज्म, वी नो दैट फंगस एंड एल्गी, these two organism, what they do, fungus or we can say bacteria or fungus or bacteria or algae or fungus, they basically eat these, they act as the scavenger. What? Scavenger or the decomposer. They act as a scavenger or decomposer and they eat all these waste, okay, and convert it into what? Convert it into basically a waste material, or they eat waste material and convert this waste into their energy, okay. So this is what and in that process, the oxygen required by these organisms is called biological oxygen demand. Now, why I am emphasizing on this particular biological oxygen demand, as we see that the salinity of any river or clarity of any river is judged based on the basis of biological oxygen demand. So that's why biological oxygen demand is an important water quality parameter, okay? Because it is an index to assess the effect discharged wastewater will have on receiving environment. द हायर द बीओडी वैल्यू, जितना ज्यादा बीओडी वैल्यू होगा उतना ही ज्यादा हमारा पोल्यूटेड रिवर होगा, क्योंकि ऑब्वियसली जितना ज्यादा हमारा बीओडी होगा, इसका मतलब क्या होगा, उतना ही ज्यादा हमें डिसॉल्व ऑक्सीजन चाहिए डीकम्पोज करने के लिए. तो उससे हम क्या इन्फर कर सकते हैं कि उतना ही ज्यादा हमारा पोल्यूटेड रिवर है और उसमें उतने ही ज्यादा ऑर्गेनिक वेस्ट प्रेजेंट है, ओके. और अगर हमारा जो रेट है डिसॉल्व ऑक्सीजन का, वो आपका कंजम्पशन का इंक्रीज होता है, तो हमारा बीओडी भी आपका इंक्रीज होगा, ओके. और जब आपका डिसॉल्व ऑक्सीजन डिप्लीट होने लगता है, क्योंकि यहाँ पे ये बैक्टीरियाज और फंगस जो हैं, ये आपका बेसिकली डिग्रेड करने के लिए डिसॉल्व ऑक्सीजन का यूज कर रहे हैं. तो जब आपका डिसॉल्व ऑक्सीजन पानी में कम होने लगता है, तो इट इम्पैक्ट द अदर स्पेशीज लाइक फिशेस and the other organism who are surviving inside the water, because they depend on the dissolved oxygen. Okay, so that's why BOD is very important. And also BOD basically is used extensively for wastewater treatment, okay, as the decomposition of the organic waste by the microorganism is commonly used in these kind of treatment. So that's why it is a very important aspect. Just remember the current related aspect and also the BOD or the basic static part of environment. Apart from that, what you have to learn, you should learn about the eutrophication process. It is a very important process and we used to teach in the pollution section or the water pollution section. So whenever you will read about eutrophication, you will let me know in the comment box. Moving further toward our next important article, that is basically from the editorial section. And as we know, since quite a long time, Anya scheme and OMSS scheme is there in news. I have already discussed about it. So we will discuss in detail about what is OMSS and what is Anya scheme. So as we know that Karnataka government, they basically promised that through the Anya scheme, they will provide additional 5 kg of free rice to every member who are below the poverty line household, and because of that they need more grain, but they can get grain through OMSS scheme, but the central government refused to grant grain under the OMSS scheme. So this is the whole point, or this is the whole crux or background of this particular news. Now first we will understand about the important aspect like the NFSA. The National Food Security under the 2013 Act it basically expanded the coverage of public distribution system substantially, as we know, and according to this law, 15% of the urban and 75% of the rural population must be covered under the public distribution system. Just remember this aspect, okay? And the central government combined these coverage ratio with the 2011 population or census, because we know the last census which happened in India was 2011 census. After 2011 census, there was like 2021 census has to happen, but due to COVID or all these problems, it didn't happen, and till now we are using only the 2011 census data, which is quite old, we can say. And this basically is a hurdle to calculate the total PDS coverage. Okay. Now, basically, some state use their own budget to top up the PDS coverage or the public distribution coverage. PDS coverage का मतलब क्या होता है? जैसे सपोज करिए 2011 का सेंसस है, उसमें एक पर्टिकुलर सेक्शन को हमने कह दिया कि इट इज बिलो पॉवर्टी लाइन, राइट? बट दिस इज बेस्ड ऑन द डेटा ऑफ 2011 सेंसस. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट इसको हमने क्या दिया? इसको हमने फ्री राइस ग्रेन दिया या फ्री हमने इसको अनाज दिया, और उसके बेसिस पे ये इंसान अपना गुजर बसर कर रहा है. उसके अलावा जब हमें पीडीएस कवरेज को, पब्लिक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सिस्टम के कवरेज को इंक्रीज करना है, तो कई सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट क्या करती है? दे एक्सपेंड द कवरेज एंड दे कवर मोर पीपल, एंड दे यूज टू डू दिस बाय स्कीम open market sale scheme or OMSS scheme. For example, Tamil Nadu is also doing that, Odisha is also doing that, and Chhattisgarh is also doing that. So the Karnataka also introduced Anya Bhag scheme to expand the PDS coverage or to give grains to more people through this particular Anya Bhag scheme, and they wanted the FCI to basically help them through OMSS scheme, which government refused to give. So FCI, talking about FCI, it procures grain for 3 broad purposes. What are these purposes? First, it support producers by procuring wheat and rice at MSP. कई बार क्या होता है, लोग जो होते हैं, फार्मर्स जो होते हैं, उनको बहुत कम दाम में अपना ग्रेन बेचना पड़ता है. ऐसा ना करना पड़े और उनको एक मिनिमम सपोर्ट प्राइस मिले, एक मिनिमम अमाउंट मिले, इसीलिए FCI क्या करती है? FCI ये ग्रेन्स को खरीदती है. Okay. Second, why FCI use this particular, why it is being established or why it procures grain? Second reason is that the central government uses this to meet the need of the PDS, providing 5 kilogram a person every month to NFSA household. So as we discussed the case, 50% जो होगा अर्बन एरिया में PDS के थ्रू ग्रेन मिलेगा और 75% रूरल एरिया में PDS के थ्रू ग्रेन मिलेगा, फ्री में ग्रेन मिलेगा। तो ये सेकेंड पर्पस होता है कि FCI प्रोक्योर करती है। यहाँ पे फार्मर्स का भी फायदा हो गया, उनको मिनिमम सपोर्ट प्राइस पे आपका ग्रेन बेचने को मिल रहा है और गवर्नमेंट ने इसको खरीद लिया। अब गवर्नमेंट लोगों में रीडिस्ट्रीब्यूट करेगी पीडीएस स्कीम के थ्रू। और थर्ड रीजन जो है, बेसिकली एफसीआई क्या करती है, प्राइस स्टेबलाइजेशन के केस में, फॉर एग्जाम्पल कल को कोई प्रॉब्लम आ जाती है और यहाँ पे हमारे पास सफिशिएंट स्टॉक नहीं रहता है, तो इन दैट केस डेफिनेटली प्राइस राइज होगा। तो इस प्राइस स्टेबलाइजेशन के लिए एफसीआई जो है वो आपका ग्रेन को प्रोक्योर करती है। सो दीज आर द 3 main reasons why FCI procures grain. Okay. Now the OMSS which has been in news, basically ये आपका states के लिए बहुत beneficial होता है, क्योंकि NFSA entitlement के beyond जाके जिन लोगों के पास NFSA में entitlement है, those who have BPL card, उनको तो ग्रेन मिलेगा ही मिलेगा NFSA में, लेकिन उसके बियॉन्ड जाके लोगों को हेल्प करने के लिए या एक ब्रॉड एरिया में जो आपका ग्रेन रीडिस्ट्रीब्यूशन करने के लिए जो स्टेट्स हैं वो अलग अलग टाइप की स्कीम लाती हैं, और वो OMSS जो आपका ओपन मार्केट सेल स्कीम जो है उसके थ्रू ये FCI से ग्रेन प्रोक्योर करती हैं और ग्रेन लेके ये लोगों में रीडिस्ट्रीब्यूट करती हैं। तो बहुत सारी ऐसी स्टेट हैं, जैसे अगर हम तमिलनाडु की बात करें तो यहाँ पे आपका किचन या आपका सप्लाई फूड जो है होता है वो आपका इसी स्कीम के थ्रू OMSS के द्वारा जो ग्रेन मिलता है उसी के थ्रू रीडिस्ट्रीब्यूट किया जाता है। अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट, इफ वी टॉक अबाउट कर्नाटका गवर्नमेंट या अन्य भागी स्कीम के प्रॉमिस को फुलफिल करने के लिए कर्नाटका गवर्नमेंट ने बेसिकली इस स्कीम का यूज करना चाहा था, बट द गवर्नमेंट, सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट रिफ्यूज्ड टू गिव ग्रेन्स under OMSS scheme. Now, what are the reasons government is stating that? First, it claims that OMSS scheme perform its price stabilization role better if the grain is released through the market rather than through the states or PDS. Like central government is saying that we will do what? We will launch the grain or we will redistribute the grain in market instead of giving the grain to the state. This is the first particular reason quoted by the central government. Second is the central government has expressed worries about maintaining a grain stock. Now, this is a controversial statement because as we know, during the time of COVID or even up beyond that, after that, the government has sufficient stock, but still the government is saying that it has to maintain stock, and that's why it is removing this OMSS scheme. This is the second reason as quoted by the central government. Third reason, as the central government said, that state government are going to give food grains to the same beneficiary as under the NFSA. So there is no benefit of that. Like किसी को अगर NFSA में जो आपका BPL कार्ड होल्डर है उसको ग्रेन मिल रहा है, तो उसको स्टेटेड बाय गवर्नमेंट उसको अन्य भाग स्कीम के थ्रू भी यही ग्रेन मिलेगा। तो एक ही टारगेट ऑडियंस को हम बेसिकली टारगेट कर रहे हैं, एंड दैट इज द रीजन बिहाइंड कि हम यहाँ पे इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं कर पा रहे, इसीलिए OMSS स्कीम को सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ने मना कर दिया कि वो ग्रेन्स को FCI के थ्रू प्रोक्योर नहीं करने देगी स्टेट्स को। सो दीज आर द बेसिक रीजन। नाउ व्हाट कैन द कर्नाटका गवर्नमेंट डू? एज वी नो, मिलेट्स, they are a very promising aspirant or alternative of grain like rice and wheat. So millets are nutritious also. What Karnataka government can do through Anya Bhag scheme, it can redistribute millets, or what has Karnataka government decided that it will pay the money to people through the direct benefit scheme. Okay, through DBS, direct benefit transfer, DBT, they will pay the money to people whom they have thought to target. Okay, so this is the whole crux of this particular editorial analysis. Now we will discuss in detail about a very important topic, that is cluster munition. Now why it has been used? Because the USA under its new package aid will provide cluster munition to Ukraine to fight against the Russia. Okay, now first we will understand in detail what is cluster munition. Cluster munition is also called cluster bombs. They are also called cluster bombs, and they are basically the canisters that carry 10 to hundreds of the small bomblets, also known as sub-munition. If the canister can be dropped from the aircraft, or it can be launched from the missile, or it can be fired through the artillery, naval guns, or the rocket launchers. Now, these canisters, when break open at a prescribed height, depending upon the area of the intended target, and the bomblet spread over an area. For example, अगर यहाँ से मैंने क्लस्टर बम को फेंका तो वो बहुत बड़े से एरिया में अलग अलग जगह जाके गिरेगा, ठीक है। कुछ बम उसी टाइम पे फ्यूज हो जाएंगे, कुछ बम उसी टाइम पे फट जाएंगे, कुछ बम रह जाते हैं एंड बेसिकली ये बाद में आपका फटते हैं। और इससे प्रॉब्लम किसको होती है? सिविलियंस को। इट इज नॉट causing problem only to the military but also to the civilian, because many a times we have seen that civilian are being hurt from this cluster munition, as it contain multiple explosives that are released over an area up to the size of several football field, and they can be dropped from plane or launched from the ground or sea, and some bombs they just do their role and some stay there and they do their role later on. Okay, so that is what the cluster ammunition or cluster munition is. Now we will discuss in detail about what is this convention talking about. Convention on cluster munition. The convention on cluster munition is basically a convention which prohibits stockpiling, just write down these terms, stockpiling, production and transfer of cluster munition. Okay, these are the main aim of this particular convention. Now 123 nations have joined that convention, and US, Russia, Ukraine and 71 others have not joined. So just remember, USA, Russia, Ukraine and 71 other nations have not joined it, and using this munition to attack enemy troop or vehicle is not illegal under the international law, but if it basically strike a civilian, then definitely it come under the war crime. Okay, so remember this thing and comment it out in comment box that which agency particular discuss cases related to war crime. Okay, so this was the news. This convention is important. What is cluster ammunition? That is important. Just remember what are all these things. Now, next article is with regard to WTO. So first I will brief you about the WTO, because in this article not much is given. I will discuss in brief what is WTO or World Trade Organization. It is basically an intergovernmental organization which regulates or facilitates international trade between the nation. Between two nations, international trade has been facilitated by the WTO. It was basically operational on 1st January 1995. Just remember the date, 1st January 1995 was the date when it came into operation. और कौन से agreement के through हुआ था? It was Marrakesh agreement. Okay, जो आपका 1994 में हुआ था, और इसने किस बॉडी को रिप्लेस किया था? That was GATT, that means General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, जो आपका 1948 में establish हुआ था, और before WTO it was GATT. Through all these international trade or these things happened. Okay, so just remember it replaced GATT in 1948, which was established in 1948, and in 1995 1st January WTO was established. Now WTO is the world's largest international economic organization with 164 members, state representing over 98% of the global trade and global GDP. And WTO is the only global international organization that is dealing with the rules of trade between the nations. Now there are various important principles on which WTO work. First is non-discrimination. It has basically two major components. The first one is most favored nation. What is MFN? एक साल पहले MFN जो था ये भी न्यूज में था, और कई बार ये न्यूज में आता रहता है मोस्ट फेवर्ड नेशन, बिकॉज पाकिस्तान और इंडिया का फाइट होता रहता है मोस्ट फेवर्ड नेशन के स्टेटस के लिए. सो बेसिकली MFN है क्या? मोस्ट फेवर्ड नेशन. It is a rule which requires that a WTO member must apply the same condition on all trade with other WTO member. That is, a WTO member has to grant the most favorable condition under which it allows trade in certain product type to all the other WTO members. Okay, so this is the concept behind most favorable nation. The second, which is coming under the non-discrimination, is national treatment policy. Basically, national treatment means that imported goods should be treated no less favorably than the domestic produced good. फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर इंडिया में कोई गुड प्रोड्यूस हो रहा है तो आप ऐसा नहीं करेंगे कि इस पे तो कोई टैक्स नहीं लग रहा, लेकिन कोई चीज इंपोर्ट होके आ रही है तो आप उस पर बहुत ज्यादा टैक्स लगाएं तो ऑटोमेटिकली इंडिया के मार्केट में उसका दाम बढ़ जाए. सो दिस इज व्हाट द नेशनल ट्रीटमेंट पॉलिसी इज. ओके, सो दीज आर द टू important principle behind the WTO. Other than that, there is also a principle of reciprocity. It basically reflects both a desire to limit the scope of free riding that may arise because the MFN rule and a desire to obtain better access to foreign market. Okay. Apart from that, it is a binding and enforceable commitment. The tariff commitment made by the WTO in any multilateral trade negotiation and on the accession are enumerated in the legal instrument known as schedule or list of the concession. So now under this particular article, the organizational structure has been given in detail. They are discussing basically how the USA is basically its appellate body has been not working because USA has not appointed any person in this. So basically we will understand what is the organizational structure. The highest authority in the WTO is the Ministerial Conference. Ministerial Conference is the higher authority, which basically meets at least every 2 years in between each ministerial conference, and the daily work is basically handled by 3 bodies whose membership is same and they only differ by the terms of reference under which each constituted. So what are these 3 bodies? First one is General Council. General Council is WTO's highest decision making body, which is located at Geneva. Okay, remember General Council of WTO is located at Geneva and it meet regularly to carry out the function of WTO. Okay. Second important body is Dispute Settlement Body, जिसकी इस आर्टिकल में बात हो रही है. Dispute Settlement Body is the central pillar of multilateral trading system and the WTO's unique contribution to the stability of the global economy. Without a means of settling dispute, the rule-based WTO would be less effective, obviously, because the rules would be enforced. So that's why a dispute settlement body is very important. The next body which is important is the Trade Policy Review Body. Okay, just remember these 3 bodies. First one is the General Council, second one is the Dispute Settlement Body, and third one is basically the Trade Policy Review Body. It basically, the WTO General Council meet as the trade policy review body to undertake trade policy review of the member, those who are under the TRPM, and to reconsider the Director General regular report on trade policy and development. So this was about the basics of WTO, which was important, which we discussed in this particular lecture, and you should remember about all these bodies. In this article, the author is just saying that how this particular dispute settlement body is important. Okay. Moving further toward our next important article from text and context. Here basically, as I already discussed in my previous DNA, Thread is basically an alternative to Twitter. Okay. So what is Thread? Thread is basically, it is launched by Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp parent company named Meta, and it is basically a text-based public conversation app which is similar to Instagram. It has feature of Instagram and it is similar to Twitter. So just remember that what is Threads and which company has launched it. Okay. So this is important in this particular article. Moving further toward a next important article related to the index which has been published by government. So basically in this particular report, it has been said by the government that the pandemic led to decline in educational performance. Okay. So what is this index? This index is performance grading index for districts. Just remember this particular name, performance grading index for district. It is released by Ministry of Education. Okay. And here basically there are various categories to assess the performance of school education and at the district level. So what are these categories? First one or the highest grade is Daksh category, followed by Utkarsh, then Ati Uttam, Uttam, Pracheshtha 1, Pracheshtha 2, Pracheshtha 3, Akanshi and Akanshi 2, and Akanshi 3 is the lowest or the lowest districts that scores less than 10%. So in this particular survey, it has been found that under Daksh and under Utkarsh, no district is there in Daksh and Utkarsh category. Maximum district or 121 districts were graded at Ati Uttam in 2020-21, and the number has fell in 2021-22 data, in which only 51 districts lie in the Ati Uttam category. Okay. Apart from that, the states or the states where the Ati Uttam category districts are there, it belongs to Delhi, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Satara, Kolhapur, Nasik, Mumbai. They basically achieved this status and also Kolkata did. ठीक है? तमिलनाडु जो है इसमें बहुत सारे ऐसे डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स हैं जो आपके 4th बेस्ट ग्रेड किए गए हैं उत्तम, और 3 जो हैं वो आपके इसके इन डिस्ट्रिक्ट में प्रचेष्टा 1 में आए। ठीक है। उसके अलावा उत्तर प्रदेश में भी बहुत सारे डिस्ट्रिक्ट है जो आपके उत्तम और प्रचेष्टा कैटेगरी में आए हैं। सो बेसिकली थ्रू दिस पर्टिकुलर रिपोर्ट द गवर्नमेंट इज सेइंग दैट द ग्रेड्स हैज बीन डिक्लाइंड, और यहाँ पे आपको एक चार्ट दिया हुआ है जिसमें आपको दिखाया जा रहा है कि इस पर्टिकुलर कैटेगरी में स्टार्टिंग 2 कैटेगरी में दक्ष में और आपका उसके अलावा जो आपका नेक्स्ट इंपॉर्टेंट है उत्कर्ष में आपका कोई भी डिस्ट्रिक्ट लाई ही नहीं कर रहा है। So just remember the name, the performance grading index, which is being released by the Ministry of Education, and what are the scoring or what are the ranking of this particular states or districts. Now, Yellen, who will say that Beijing visit helped the US-China relation on surer footing. So basically, what is important here that you have to remember that US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and apart from that, US Secretary of State Janet Yellen, they basically talked and they said their relationship will soon improve. Okay, so as there was some disturbance, so we will discuss this particular PGI index, which is very important. So we will discuss the dimensions again. There are basically 12 domains under this category: the learning outcome on and quality, access outcome, teacher availability and professional development outcomes, learning management, learning enrichment activities, infrastructure activities, facilities, student enlightenment, school safety and child protection, digital learning, funds covering utilization and the attendance monitoring system. And apart from that also school learning, leadership development. These are the important domains under which the PGI index is being published. Okay. So this is all for today. I hope you liked this particular lecture. If you like this lecture, definitely like and subscribe our channel and spread it to your friends. Thank you. Stay tuned with Manu Law Classes for further updates.